Hi guys, Hope Savaro here, and I'm super excited that you decided to join me this morning. And I gotta be honest, I was just popping on Facebook to write a post, and I came across a video, and it really kind of just torqued me a little bit, and like, okay, I think we need to discuss this topic a little bit more in detail, because I think that people are missing some really important key elements to this particular pose. And so I'm talking about plank. And if you have been living under a rock, you're probably like, okay, what exactly is plank? But for most of us, we've either heard about plank, we've been practicing plank in our yoga classes, in our CrossFit classes, in our aerobics classes, and you may have even enrolled in a plank challenge. But I can't tell you the number of times that I continue to come across people that just aren't teaching plank the right way. They aren't giving you those bread and butter cues to really help you supercharge your plank. And that's understanding the core. And so there's a couple key points that I want to go over this morning in hopes that you're going to be able to supercharge your plank, whether you're a teacher or a student, or you just like planking, and you're going to start working smarter and not harder, and you're going to increase your results of your plank so that if you are enrolling in a plank challenge or you are doing plank regularly, you're actually going to help yourself and not hurt yourself. And that's something super important and that I stress all the time. So we're going to start up on our palms, and then we're going to come down to our forearms. So if you have a yoga block, grab it. If you don't have a yoga block, grab a textbook or a cookbook, something that has about shoulders width that we're going to be utilizing in just a few minutes. Okay, so let's start out in a tabletop position. So when you start out in tabletop in plank, super important the direction of your arms. So these things here we call elbows. You want to make sure that the folds of the elbows are trying to turn forward, honoring though the joint. So if you have really hypermobile elbows and they pop the opposite way, well guess what? You're just going to have to learn how to pull back and start to strengthen and even kind of shorten the muscle to make up for the overstretched tendon and ligament and connective tissue. I promise in the long run that's going to pay off. So we want an external rotation on the arms, and if you can, try to keep the palm nice and flat. You're going to notice a whole different activity load in the upper body. I see so many people turning the folds of the elbows in, and what ends up happening in plank is they overuse the chest muscles to compensate for a lack of really good core work. And yeah, you may be able to take plank a couple seconds longer, but you're not practicing plank from the inside out. You're basically trying to muscle through it, I always say, utilizing more of the chest or pectoral muscles, which I call the superficial or the large skeletal muscles, rather than getting into that transversus and pelvic floor, which is where plank should start from. So when you're on tabletop's a really easy place to start. We're going to try to align the wrists under the shoulders, bend your elbows, and now externally rotate the arms. You should feel not only a stretch and broadening through your chest, but through the upper back as well. We want to watch the hunching. Resist that temptation. Now as you push down through your pointer finger and thumb, you're probably going to have to work through some restriction in the forearms. Welcome to overusing the forearms through phones and iPhones and computers and mouse work. So there's a little bonus stretch in there. Next thing is to what to do with the rib cage. So I see this a lot. We either over round or we drop in the rib cage and we kind of sink down through the belly. So when we step back into plank, people are like, why do my shoulders and back hurt so much? I want you to think about getting out of that cow-like shape in the back body. You are asking your joints to do all the work rather than asking your core to do all the work. This is a game changer in plank. I don't care what kind of fancy plank someone's saying that will kick-charge your core. You have to start from ground zero doing it right. So when you set yourself up, we want what's called neutral. You're going to bring the rib cage up and in, or if I'm sitting upright, we basically don't want the rib cage splaying out. Drop the rib cage down. This is going to help you access not only your deep transversus, which is your deepest back muscle, but you're going to take that rectus, that six-pack muscle, from being overstretched to actually starting to create a tone and strengthen in it that's super important and critical for the body. So as we come into that tabletop again, And if you're kind of like, oh my gosh, yeah, there's a lot to this position, but once you know how to do it, you'll never ever forget it. So once I lift the rib cage up into neutral, I'm going to make sure my pelvis is in neutral as well. You got to put body parts in the right places, people. It's not just about doing the pose. You will not benefit the way that you're supposed to if you don't do this first. So we want to make sure, you're going to lose my head here, we want to make sure the pelvis is in neutral as well. So that means that the pubis bone and hip bones are parallel with the floor. If you have really tight hip flexors, what ends up happening is we drop the belly and we try to stay and use the hip flexors, and we totally bypass the deep pelvic core. Rather than actually using those muscles, we just rely on the tight ones, and that's not going to get us anywhere but a whole hell of a lot of back pain. So folds of the elbows forward, lift through the rib cage, neutral the pelvis, and now imagine yourself in cold water. This is where we're going to access literally the pelvic floor. Those are those deep bathroom muscles. I'm talking about back by the anal sphincter, okay? Yes, that's a muscle by your tailbone. You're going to ignite that. For women, it's the vaginal passageway. For men, it's the soft tissue behind the scrotum. It's very internal and in the pelvic bowl. And then finally, up by the pubis bone, the urethra, this is what controls our bladder. These are pelvic floor muscles. You have to use them, people. You cannot bypass them. You will not benefit from plank or pretty much anything else you do if you don't understand this part of the body. All right, once you've done that and you engage the body, keeping yourself nice and strong, you're going to step back into a plank position. Now, I know some of us have been taught to work plank with the feet separate. I'm going to tell you to bring the legs together, and here's why. When we work the legs together, it's like a big zipper. It's like one big strong monster leg. You're going to get a lot more out of your plank that way, and you're going to notice a different kind of challenge. So let's get into plank, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. So fingertips wide. Bend your elbows. Turn the folds of the elbows forward without turning your hands. Yes, there's a stretch through the wrist there. Okay, once you do that, press up through the body without hyperextending the elbows. You should feel a stretch through your upper back and openness through your front chest. You should never be shortening the distance from inner shoulder to inner shoulder in plank. From there, rib cage is neutral, pelvis is neutral. I'm engaging my bathroom muscles. I'm engaging my lower belly. And I'm going to step back into that one big leg. Now engage through the legs. Engage through the inner line of the core. So that's all the way up through the inner thigh. Now slide your shoulders back and tip your hip bones up in towards your belly just a little bit more. Now it's like, oh, there's that little earthquake I'm looking for. Press through all of your fingers and knuckles as, again, from heels to crown, you're trying to make one nice long line. All of a sudden this happens for people. Oh, I'm so tired, but I'm going to stay. I'm going to hold it. Or they do this. I can do it. People, stop your plank. Modify to the knees. It's about using the right muscles, not just saying that you held your plank with your knees off the floor for a minute. You're going to use all the wrong muscles. You're going to start creating strain, and you're going to overstretch the overstretched muscles and keep the areas of the body weak and tight that are already weak and tight. So if you're going for time, and you're starting to, drop the knees down, okay? Take a breath, join again. I would rather have you doing this than have you doing this, or my favorite, this, just to say that you survived a plank. So I want to talk a little bit about forearm plank now. So for so many people, they're doing forearm plank like this. Please, you're watching this video, never ever do forearm plank like this again. I don't care who says to do it that way. I'm going to tell you why you should not do this, and from now on you're going to be using a block, a cookbook, a textbook, whatever you can to open your palms up and keep them from clasping. When we interlace or make a fist and clasp, we overuse our chest and bicep muscles, and we kind of avoid that really deep pelvic core. Pelvic floor muscles plus deep transversus. When we do that, we're not benefiting from the forearm plank the way that we're supposed to. When we open our arms, we not only aid in that essential external rotation, but we put our shoulder girdle in proper position, we put our rib cage in a little bit better proper position, and we start to shift the load down into the core. that is absolutely essential, and isn't that the whole reason why you're doing planks in the first place? So when we put a block between our palms, it keeps us from rounding and hunching forward. When we open that up, oh, the whole world changes and plank becomes a whole new pose. So place your palms on the outside of a block, and then bring yourself down onto the floor. Now when I use that, I'm going to push down into the floor with my forearms like I'm karate chopping the floor. If you only put the weight on your elbows, you're going to feel that in your lower back, and that's where then plank becomes the struggle that it should never become. So please push all the way from your elbow to your pinky finger, and you can even push in on the block, but you're not going to get that kyphotic rounding forward where the chest and the inner shoulder muscles stay tight, and we end up having a lot of issues through the neck. So I'm going to press down through my forearms, slide my shoulders back, keep the rib cage knit up, and then as I step back, my shoulders are going to stay on top of my elbows. I'm going to bring my legs together and then tip the hip bones up and in towards the belly without rounding the back. And then, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Move forward, move back, lift a leg, however it is that you like to do it, even drop to the knees. But I want you to keep that nice long line and continue. The biggest thing in forearm plank is keep pressing through the arm. Don't just load the elbow. You're going to feel that in the lower back instantly. For a lot of people, be it plank or forearm plank, they find that they kind of lose that strength in the core after a few breaths, especially if you're pretty green to doing plank properly. Super quick, no-brainer fix. Put the ball between your thighs, just above your knee, and then as you come in, doing all those proper steps, I promise you they're going to become automatic in no time, and then step your feet back. Bring your feet just a hair closer than what you would normally do, and give the ball a good engaging squeeze. You're going to feel your glutes turn on. You're going to feel that pelvic core turned on. Remember, hip bones tipped up into the belly, sliding the shoulders back, rib cage tipped up, and then lengthen from your heels to your crown, pushing into all 10 fingers. You're going to feel a lot stronger, and you're going to feel like you're floating rather than sinking. So it's really important. You want to work plank and forearm plank smarter, and that way you're not going to be using all the wrong muscles. Take the time to put your body in the right position. A nice little tip I always do is I come around in my class, and I take my first two fingers and I just gently press on their lower back, one finger on each side of the vertebrae, and they're going to resist me. And they feel their core muscles resist me. When they're not in their core, their booty pushes up, their shoulders hunch, and then I know that they're still trying to use their joints and their large skeletal muscles to do the job of that deep core. So remember, palms down, externally rotate the arms like you're breaking that stick. You're feeling your shoulder girdle slide down and anchor in. And then remember, rib cage down, hip bones tipped into neutral. Bring your legs together. If you're on the forearms, elbow sits under shoulder, and karate chop the crap out of that floor. Lower back pain is a signal you're not utilizing your arms properly, and you're totally bypassing that deep transversus. So the next plank challenge that you do, the next time that you hit the mat and you're going to start bringing planks into play, whatever it is, however it is you're going to use plank, please take the time to utilize these tips and tricks properly so that you get every drop of effort out of your practice. All right, great job, great work, and I'll see you on the mat again soon. Namaste.